Pinned. Good morning, everybody. So happy Thursday, all. So according to schedule, working with emotions. So based on the previous lead-in conversation, it seems like that's an appropriate theme. Again, just addressing everybody's in an odd predicament these days, being that we're all continually sheltering in place for the long term here. Thank you. Text there. Speaking of texts, since I'm doing recordings, I have my video pinned so everybody else is not being viewed. But one thing that it does do is it obscures my ability to see if somebody's been booted out and needs to be admitted back in. So feel free to text me directly. That tends to show up. So my text information, my phone number is in the text box there. The Zoom text has my phone number and you can regularly text, just to clarify. Okay. Sorry, the side chatter in the text box, pretty funny. Okay, working with emotions today. I'd like to go back to what we were talking a little bit about yesterday, using Michael Taft's map related to Vipassana. I find that to be helpful as well when working with emotions, because the noting feeling states has a bit of a how shall we say a Vipassana-esque quality to it. You know, again, it's a body-oriented focus, working with noticing the sensations of emotion that rise and fall, being able to discern them. So, I like to use that analogy of clear. Can we contact them, label them, explore the sensory experience while bringing a sense of acceptance or equanimity, and then relinquish, release, let go of it. But I want to revisit the working, the stages of practice. See, can people see this? Okay, particular map way of working. So I want to just kind of adapt it more specifically to the noting feeling states. So again, there's the 4 stages of conceptual, sensory, flow, and awareness. I think yesterday I was talking about it maybe more in a larger strokes, larger themes of how we advance in practice and maybe what becomes available. But let's see, last night in class, Lucia, you aptly spotlighted when you said, what did you say? It's kind of a confetti of experience. I liked your phrasing there, where a lot of these, our experience can present itself in all of these levels, given the course of a sit, which is absolutely true and appropriate. So I just want to talk about applying this map to just the course of a sit, in a way in which, as our concentration, sensory clarity, equanimity tends to increase, we can kind of auger deeper into our experience during the course of the sit. So working with noting feeling states, we're contacting the sensation of emotion in the body, labeling it, hanging out with it. So this experience of hanging out with it. So the conceptual stage, this is the stage where we're just kind of contacting experience by thinking. So ideally, even within the instruction is, can you contact the sensory stage, which is stage 2? But a lot of us have difficulty with it. Through no fault of our own, we just have these brains that just tend to just do whatever they want. And that's okay. So even the meditator who's been at this for quite some time is still subject to thinking. So this is something that happens a lot, and I'd like to offer a particular strategy. So on this conceptual level, we're attempting to meditate, be with the noting feelings, but there's the thoughts and ideas that's happening. Oh, wait, hold on. There we go, adapting it more to the working with the noting feelings. So on the conceptual level, thinking about emotions, but we're more lost in thought. I'm trying to go with the exercise, but my brain is doing its thing. Fantasy, planning, daydream. So if thinking is occurring, consider, probably this is a self-soothing strategy. I'm bored with what's going on. My brain wants to be entertained, stimulated. Whatever it is that we're kind of wanting to do, deep down inside, the brain is kind of inclining us towards that. So some sort of self-soothing strategy is happening due to, well, that shows up as fantasy planning, daydream planning is happening. Then maybe, trying to get on top of things might be mitigating some underlying anxiety. That's normal. Just as the thinking is happening, can you send that little strand of awareness back into the body and recognize what's being generated? What's the emotional effect that's happening from the thoughts that's occurring? So it's almost like two activities going on. It's just like, all right, my thoughts are happening. Ain't nothing happening about that. Their thoughts are just going to be doing their thing. Come back into the body. What's being generated? Oh, that's a fantasy. I'm feeling entertainment. Oh, that's I'm planning. Oh, actually, I'm feeling some kind of anxiety, etc. And then try to, if the thoughts are just going to happen, just kind of allow them to be there, but just kind of flip it so they're more in the background. But just continue to be aware in the body of what it's receiving, so to speak. Before, when I was sitting this morning, my mind was just off to the races, and it was doing its thing, and it was off on this general random fantasy that was happening. And so I just kept coming back into the body, and it's like, all right, well, what's being generated here? And I was feeling qualities of love. I was feeling qualities of confidence. I was feeling qualities of, I don't know, this, what's this quality? Bravery or something. And it's like, oh, okay, well, those are pleasant. Maybe there's a part of me that's just asking to feel this way, as opposed to, I don't know, distracted, frustrated, overwhelmed. So, I kept coming back to that hedonic tone and using that as the main focus, even though the thoughts were a lot louder. And then the more it's like, oh, okay, I'm recognizing this is what's going on, and this is probably what my nervous system wants to feel right now. It became easier to then just let go of that which was trying to generate the content and just take that. So it became this kind of noting feelings, kind of metta practice it eventually fell into. So I just want to offer that as a strategy. If you find that you're stuck in this conceptual stage where a lot of thoughts are taking place, send a strand back into the body. Be aware. And then once you're able to contact that sensory experience, then that tends to no longer fuel the emotions. And then once you're in the sensory experience, you're actually getting into the feel-in experience. So then can you start to explore, discern the qualities of the sensation, the size, the shape, the location, the density of it. And of course, permit, allow, bring equanimity to it. And then eventually, possibly flow may begin to present itself. The emotions, the sensations may begin to move, spread. So then you can adapt your strategy to work with flow. So there's different strategies we work with. The local, there's a little spelling there. My dyslexia is showing itself. Local, global, full body. It's the sensation taking up a small local region of the body. Is it more of a global region? It's taking up a few chunks. Is it full body, felt everywhere? Just observe that flux and flow as it kind of moves between small, medium, and large. Or you can focus on the expansive and contractive qualities themselves. Usually if we lean into expansion, contraction, something about that technique that tends to bring us to neutrality in an interesting way. But different ways that we can allow our focus to be fluid, so that matches and we're able to track the fluidity of experience. And of course, permit, allow, yield, allow the activity to take the lead at that point. That activity of flow. And then fourth, awareness. When the emotions tend to lose grip, when we get into the flow stage, and there can tend to be this increased anatta, this increased not self, or this increased objectivity, then the awareness itself can become a little bit more available. If that becomes available, then try to rest in that, sit in that experience. That's not to say that emotions go or sensations go, but it tends to remove a little bit of that facade of the observer, so to speak. And then we can just kind of rest in this open awareness, just abiding in this activity. So conceptual sensory flow awareness as it relates to the noting feeling states exercise. So I just thought I'd just kind of adapt that a little bit. Before we get into it, any questions, comments before we get into the sit? Right.
I find that second part of the map that you shared, I'm really digging those maps, the Taftian maps. I'm sure his ego would love that. But
everybody would love a IAN after the name. I mean,
yeah. I find it helpful because it really, right now, and probably until further notice, I'm going to be in this slightly activated state. And so any selfing and expression will be from that view, although I do have access to equanimity. And so what that second map pointed to was maybe I'm doing more formal practice than I realized. So
yeah,
thank you for that.
Sure. Formal practice on the cushion and also formal practice off the cushion too. Yeah. Is that what you also mean? The way that you're just kind of going through life, being aware of and kind of attending to your experience?
Yes.
Yeah.
And my physical practices, it's just hard to see when you're in it.
Yeah.
And attempting a equanimous view at the same time.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. Okay, excellent. Let's all adopt the position. Allow yourself to come to a comfortable upright seated posture. Allow yourself to straighten up and settle in. We're going to be working with some noting feeling states today, but we can start off with a few minutes of settling in with the breath. Allow yourself to contact the breath in the body. And allow yourself to discern the various qualities, sensations that can arise, the pleasant, hedonic tones that can arise as a result of tending to the breath. So even as we are engaging in breath, we can begin to sensitize ourselves to the feeling states by just noticing what the various stages of breath potentially make available. And again, this can be very, very, very subtle expressions of an emotive tone. But this is a significant part of the work of paying attention to the subtle, discerning, permitting, allowing. Okay, good. So remember that breath is always available. And at any time, if you prefer to reconnect with breath exclusively, feel free to do so. Otherwise, I invite you to drop your awareness into the body, free floating awareness in the body. Attune yourself to the regions of the body where emotions are usually detectable. For most people, this tends to be around the face, throat, front of torso. But wherever it is for you that you normally detect sensations of emotion, just contact these regions. Allow your awareness to free float within these regions of the body, and moment by moment, just contact the various sensations that are emotive in nature. They can be the unpleasant ones of the anger, fear, sadness, hopelessness, disgust, shame, embarrassment, and so on. They can be pleasant emotive tones such as joy, love, humor, compassion, appreciation, equanimity, confidence, acceptance, peace. At any given time, there can just be something you're not sure what it is. You can just label not sure or something. If you find that there's nothing going on at all, just ask yourself, are you perfectly at peace? In which case, that's a perfectly valid um, feeling state. Observe, where is that peace detected? So, moment by moment, contact the sensation, label it, explore, bring acceptance, and release. So, as I'm engaging in the technique, it might sound something like this: joy, joy and fear, acceptance, sadness, acceptance, joy, and so on like that. A reminder if there's a lot of thinking going on, there's a lot of activity of seeing here in fantasy, planning, daydream. Is all of that mental activity having an effect or an impact on the emotions in the body? Walk back down the line of thinking back into the body. What is being generated? That takes us into the sensory level. We can give it a name, explore its features, the size, the location, the density, all the while just permitting, allowing, increasing our discernment, concentration, equanimity. The more that we're able to lean into the qualities of the sensory experience, of the feeling states, observing size, location, density, we might begin to notice some other subtleties as well. Maybe sensations want to move, express flow in some direction, expansively, contractively, local, global, whatever way that the sensation wants to move. Permit, allow it. In a way where we hand over the driver's wheel to the activity of impermanence itself. Just yield into any movement that wants to show. Maybe flux and flow is available. Maybe it's not. That's okay. If it's available, it can be superficial, it can be profound. Whatever way a rate of change takes place, just be open to it. Otherwise, can we pull back even a little bit more? Just include this faculty of awareness. Just that aspect of being that is alert, bright, awake, is aware of all of this. Can we rest in that a bit? To whatever degree feeling states are doing their thing, that's one aspect of activity that's taking place within awareness. So play that out however that makes sense to you. Just being aware of awareness itself. And of course, the being aware of awareness can be superficial or profound, and it doesn't negate any of the preceding activities either. Just being able to step back, rest in awareness, we can still be aware of the flux and flow, or the simple contact with the sensory experience, or the activity of the thoughts rising and falling as well. But there's less of an identification of self in any of those activities, and it becomes somewhat integrated with the rest of the sensory events taking place in awareness, in the environment around you. Okay. At ease, everybody. So not necessarily ending the meditation, but opening eyes, transitioning to next phase. Allowing yourself to still be in contact with what you've generated. What did you notice? What was relevant for you this morning? Feel free to unmute yourself and manifest.
So what was relevant to me was some of the phrases that I jotted down, like that you said before, when you were talking about how you would get lost in thought, but then you would notice that there was, and I do like words, and I liked your use of words when you referred to there were hedonic tones in your body. I don't hear the word hedonic very much. And then you also said, so if you're getting lost in thought, and I had jotted down send a strand, and send a strand of awareness into your body. And sure enough, I kept getting kind of lost in thought. And, it's a friend's birthday. What was I going to get her? Work stuff, families. I mean, just the usual barrage, nothing, so significant. And those phrases about the hedonic tones in the body and sending a strand of awareness into the body to locate those just kept coming back to me. And I found them so useful. So as Christine before was saying, thank you for that in terms of what you shared on the maps. Thank you for that in terms of those phrases. Very useful.
Good. I'm glad that you're connecting with tools that was helping you still kind of maintain. Yeah, I mean, the mind is going to do its thing, especially first thing in the morning too, when we're kind of planning and plotting our day as well. There can be a lot of those, well, what happens next thoughts. So to still kind of somehow stay contact that, yeah, it's generating a lot of relevant material to work with. Good. I'm glad that was helpful. Anybody else care to share what took place for you this morning?
Yeah, so I noticed that for me, in terms of flow, I can very easily detect flow in thoughts or in sort of like non-emotive sensations in the body. But when it comes to emotive sensations in the body, it's like stuck. It's like epoxy glue cemented. And I was doing essentially this meditation this morning on my own, and noting flow, but I think I arrived at the emotions just like, it just so happened. And this morning, I think I was trying to like kind of force a sense of motion. Like I was like noting expansion and contraction. And I wasn't sure, and I was like, I think that's expansion. And I was sort of like overlaying this conceptual sort of kinetic tone to the sensation, but it was like somehow disconnected from the actual sensation, which was often just stuck. So I noticed there was like a disconnect, and I was trying to force me like, okay, I'm going to yield into this motion. I think it's expansive, but I don't think it actually was like completely like parallel to what was going on.
Okay.
So, and during this meditation, I noticed there's like this stuckness, in like the middle of my body. So I just started scanning, like you suggested at some point. And that felt more kind of more close to the reality that was unfolding. Even though it was like a lot of stuck. But then I could feel as I was going up and down, like there's like different tiers of sensation.
How would you describe those different tiers of sensation?
Like, in the pit of my stomach, there's like a very like kind of solid, like it's like a knot. And then, there'd be a little bit more, and I don't know what I would label that emotion as, other than just like a lump of yuck. And then there's like maybe like slightly moving sort of like sensation of fear it's like a little higher, and it seems like fear and anxiety and just sort of but it's definitely a little more fluid, and then it kind of like moves up into, I don't know, maybe sadness, like up here.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's almost like sad, fear, sadness, anger, but it's like, yeah, they're very kind of solid, it's like this stratified layers. But, just going up and down made me realize that it's not just like one solid thing that doesn't move. I mean, maybe they don't move individually, but there's definitely distinctions to be made.
Excellent. No, I mean, that's excellent reporting there. Yeah. When oftentimes if flow is not available and all there is solidity, then yeah, we're, then using a strategy or technique for flow may not be appropriate. So getting into the increased sensory clarity with a systematic inventory technique, like scanning the localized sensations of solidity, just as you were doing, is excellent. And so what that was doing was that was increasing your sensory clarity. You're like, oh, okay, there's yuck, then there's the fear, sadness, anger. Is that how it goes? You're just moving up and down. So it's kind of like you're just going up and down the elevator of misery.
Right, yes.
Now then, so my question for you is, as you were doing that, and again, excellent strategy, excellent work, and you're gaining increased sensory clarity of being able to distinguish, how these the different floors had different kind of content or sensations, qualities. How is the equanimity? How is the ability to really kind of like sink into those sensations, like water into sand, so to speak, that permitting, allowing?
I think it was getting better as I was, as the sensory clarity was increasing. But I mean, usually that doesn't feel like a safe place to abide, that area of the body. It's like, not safe, go think about something. So, I definitely had that, feeling of like, oh, I catch myself thinking, it's like, oh, I gotta go back in that, it's like, descend into the swamp.
Mm-hmm.
So there was definitely like, I could feel there was a resistance to hanging out there, because it's not very nice, and it doesn't feel safe. It feels like in order to protect myself, I need to think. So it's almost like
in order to protect yourself, you do what?
But by thinking, by kind of escaping that,
yeah,
okay, the sensations. But
now then, so there's this core. Now, if you were to move your awareness just kind of a strata out around it, and so you're not like let's say if this is kind of the core, rather, so you spend some time scanning here. Now then, if you were to just kind of move a little bit out and just kind of into the coronal field around it, is there anything there? Does that feel safer? Does that feel like it's still this, but it's kind of a little to a lesser degree?
Yeah, I think I was doing some of that where I realized that there was some boundary, and outside that boundary of unpleasantness, there was some kind of expansive, like usually like my head feels sort of like expansive and spacious. Okay. So I did notice there was like a, transition.
Good.
And that did help with equanimity a little bit, just kind of noticing that.
Excellent. So there's, I'm hearing you're working on the knowing when and how to bear down into the experience and how to lighten up into the experience. Yeah. You can kind of, if you're kind of auguring into it and it's just like, oh, this is unsafe, this isn't feeling that good. But yeah, then maybe you can kind of like come out and start to search the other areas around. Maybe the coronal field around it might have some of those flavors, but to a lesser degree. And maybe if you move further away from it, so you're meditating away, what are the regions of the body that don't have those sensations, that might be a little bit more neutral or even pleasant in comparison. That could be working with feeling states, other feelings, emotions that are available, or it could be, as you're describing, experiences of flow states that may be available. So you can kind of move away and out of it, and that can be kind of your safe base to kind of ground, soothe, ease. And then when you feel like it, you can kind of go back into it again, kind of work into that core. So there's different ways that you can kind of like expand outwards versus kind of augering in. But it seems like your sensory clarity and your way of working with those regions of solidity and intensity are great. Now I would lean into the equanimity strategies. So kind of spending some time in it, spend some times in the safe areas of the body to ground and really feel like you're kind of resting and recuperating some equanimity.
I really like the idea of the kind of exploring the boundaries and hanging out between those two.
Yeah. Sometimes I've had experiences where it's like I touch upon an emotion and it's like, wow, this just feels like it's a bomb ready to go off. Maybe I don't want to hang out right in there, or it feels like just too invasive to just kind of auger and penetrate into it. And it's just like, you know what, well, it's like getting into the hot tub. It's just like, I don't want to jump right in. It's just like, I'm just going to kind of hang out a little bit, just kind of, just kind of ease into it like slowly. So it's just like, all right, I'll just hang out in the field around it. What's that atmosphere, that cloudy, it might be cloudy, it might not be, but you can gain some sensory clarity in just that next kind of level outside of it. And usually I would kind of enter into that space like, all right, I'm starting to feel it, but it still feels safe. I'm just going to hang out there until I feel a little bit kind of acclimatized to it. Okay, I can kind of go in a little bit. All right, I still feel a little safe. So that sense of safety / equanimity can, kind of acclimatize as you go in. Or sometimes I've had the experience where I just kind of hang out in the coronal field around the sensation, just have equanimity with that. And that just kind of passively augers into and begins to break up that core sensation. So sometimes we don't need to auger into the core. We can still hang out in a safer kind of region around outside of it. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you.
Explore that. All right, thank you. Excellent. Thank you for that sharing. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your time, your attention this morning. So life practice as you go through the day. Can you be aware of the hedonic tones that are being generated by your thoughts, by your actions, your activity? And yeah, just that experience of equanimity with it. And to whatever degree, conceptual, sensory, fluidity versus awareness, you can explore that if you'd like to as well. But somehow just maintaining contact with that brings us to a little bit more of an authenticity of our experience. Okay, everybody, have yourselves a wonderful day. Hope to see you all mañana. Okay.